Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So in this video, we're going to talk XRP. It's been a while since I made a video. I apologize for the long delay. I have been busy, and I've really just been waiting for XRP to develop a bit more. It's just been going painfully slow right now. But we do have some stuff to examine on this chart, so let's dive in. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty, you need to understand the macro structure. For those of you who follow this channel and know what this structure is, bear with me. I'll make it quick. For those of you who are new, XRP has a repetitive macro structure. What that means is XRP has its bull runs, it has its declines, and it has its sideways range-bound times that repeat over and over again. So, for instance, over here, we have a bull run, a decline, and a sideways range-bound time. It took place on a much smaller scale than over here. We are currently working through that same macro structure once again. It has a bull run, a decline, and we are now working through the sideways range-bound time. Let's focus on this sideways range-bound time because that's where we are currently over here. So there are three fractals, or at least I divided up into three fractals. There is fractal 1, which includes a move up and a move back down in part A, and then part B goes flat. Sometimes it arches down. In fractal 2, it has three waves, wave A, wave B, and wave C. In fractal 3, price moves up to a peak, and then it declines. It then recovers, does another correction right here. Typically it's smaller, and then it moves into the bull run. So over here in fractal 1 with part A, where it moves up and moves back down, we see that took place over here with this move up and move down, and then in part B it went flat. In fractal 2 we had the three waves. Well, over here we have the three waves as well, wave A, wave B, and wave C. Notice how wave C is so much higher than this wave C. This brings up a very important and interesting point. When a fractal repeats, the timing, the height, and the depth, those will always play out original to the new iteration of that structure. So over here, we see that the C wave moved up much higher than it did over here. So as we move along into fractal 3, price moves up to a peak, which is part A, it then declines, which is part B, and then it recovers, does that correction. So this is the one we are currently working through. Now, this is my view of it at the moment. We have moved up into part A, which is the peak. It then declined into part B. It then recovered, and it is now doing that correction. This is a very deep correction for this smaller correction. Now, the reason why it is possible that it is a very deep correction this time around is due to the timing, height, and depth being original or unique whenever a fractal repeats. So if this is the way it's playing out, it should begin to move up and eventually move up very fast into the bull run. Now, there is another possibility. I could be reading this incorrectly, and in that case, it could be part A here, and this could be part B. If that is the case, what we should see is a recovery and then another correction, and then it's off to the bull run. I'm going to argue that that is not the case, and rather this is the case. I could be wrong, but here is my evidence. Real quickly, this blue box would be potentially where we are in this greater structure. So if we were to copy and paste this fractal over here, it would look something like this. Now, this doesn't look very easy to understand, but bear with me. So we have different parts of the structure, and keep in mind that when a fractal repeats, it's going to be unique, although the basic idea will repeat. So we have this first part right here, which is this right here. After this first wave, price moves up into a second wave. We see that here in the fractal where price moved up and kind of winded its way to a point. Now, this is where it differs. So this move up and then move back down, I called this the great fake out. I was prepared for this to happen. Many of us who followed this fractal develop were expecting this to happen. However, this did not happen. So when this originally took place, back over here, this was the peak of this fractal, part A. That is not the case this time around. Today's part A is over here. Here. So this move up and move down is not included in today's structure. This is normal. If we examine fractal threes from previous times, they all look unique, but they all do the same functions. They all move up to a peak, which is part A, they decline, which is part B, they recover, they do another correction, and then it goes into the bull run. So this analysis is not an analysis of how closely fractals look. They will look different every time because the timing, the height, and the depth is going to be unique. What this is a study of is the functions of fractals, what they do, not how they look. So let's zoom back over here. Today's structure, today's fractal 3 does not include this great fake out. After this decline, and ignoring this fake out, it snaps back in line and it does this wave right here that we see on the fractal and on today's chart. Let's zoom in a little closer. Here we are on a 4-hour candle versus a day candle. So here we have that wave. Price moves up in the fractal. We also see that in the chart with a wave right here. It then pushes up even higher. In today's chart, we see that same push up to a peak in the fractal. It then declines. In fact, we even have the little peak we see in the fractal take place on today's chart as well. It then declines, comes to a bottom or a trough. It then does a bounce on today's chart and the fractal as well. However, today's chart, it took much longer and this bounce was bigger. Again, the timing, the height, and the depth is unique when a fractal repeats. After this bounce, price moves up. We even see the waves as it moves up. It comes to a peak. After this peak, both the fractal declines, it does a very small decline, and today's chart declines. Today's chart does a substantial decline, very large. So this massive decline, I did not see it coming. The fractal did not suggest that we have been following the closest, did not suggest it was going to be this deep. However, once again, with timing, height, and depth being original to whenever a fractal repeats, this is a possibility. Now, this decline is a very unique decline, making this smaller correction deeper than this original correction. That is a unique occurrence if we are truly at this point. We could potentially be at this point, which would be B. However, given the fact that this structure that we have been going through on today's chart closely resembles this structure, the timing, the height, and depth is different, but it does the functions that this fractal does in the correct sequence of events. They're all there. The timing, height, and depth is just different. So this decline could potentially be part of that smaller correction. So this leaves this part right here. Well, if we were to copy this part of the fractal and paste it onto here, it would look something like this. Now, this is my interpretation of how this is playing out. It could theoretically be smaller like this, and this move down is just a more substantial move down in the same way that this move down was more substantial. So that is a possibility. However, I don't know if it is that. I'm open to that being the case, but it could potentially be playing out on a larger scale. We don't know how large of a scale this is playing out at. It's clearly much larger than this. As this develops, it will give us more clues on what's going on. Another thing we can do is we can compare this to other third range-bound fractals. So in this one, price moves up to a peak, which is part A. It then declines, which is part B. It then recovers, does a correction before going into the bull run. Let's copy this one and paste it on today's chart and compare it. We see the resemblance in today's chart, although there is some differences. Today's chart has this move up and then it declines, whereas this one, this fractal, does not have that, but it does come to a point, which is part B, the decline, and then it begins its recovery. Now, I don't know if I have this lined up the way it should be. Today's chart is still developing, so it could change the way I have this lined up, but potentially I might have this lined up correctly. We'll have to see how it plays out. It also could be playing out on a bigger time frame. So in other words, this bounce right here is this, and then we're working through this one right here. It still needs to come down and reach its trough before moving up into the bull run. Let's remove this. There is also recent history that we can draw on. If we take this fractal, this little tiny part right here, and apply it to over here, it would look something like this. There is commonality here. So it has this part right here where it bounces and just is range bound. It then does this first wave, which we see on both the fractal and on today's chart. It does a second wave, which we see on both the fractal and today's chart. My guess, it would be doing something similar to this right now. We'll have to see how this develops, but if this is the case, it will recover and then this thing just takes off. We'll have to see if today's chart does that. There's another fractal. If we were to take this structure right here, this is recent history again, and just copy and paste it over here, it would look something like this, where it has the bounces on the way down to a trough. If this is playing out, we would potentially see another drop, and then this could potentially even go lower than here. We'll have to see once again how this plays out. I want to bring your attention to something I've never talked about, but it is relevant to all of crypto. That is the Bitcoin dominance chart. So this is a chart that shows how much of crypto, of the crypto market, is invested in Bitcoin. So we can see over here there's 100%, and right now it's at 55.41% at the time of this recording. So the lower this moves down, that indicates that money is being taken out of Bitcoin, and it usually goes into altcoins. Now, when this drops, altcoins historically have taken off. It is my belief that this chart has a repetitive macro structure. So it starts with this blue box right here, which is 1, and it actually is a decline. Let's zoom in over here. So it declines. It then moves back up in box 2 and comes to a peak in box 3, which is the purple one. It crashes or declines. And then in box 4, it kind of goes sideways before eventually dropping again, and this is where the structure repeats. So it starts box 1 again over here. Let's zoom in. There's box 1. There's box 2, the gray box, where it comes to a peak, and then it declines into the third or the purple box. And the reason why I say this is repetitive is if you take these structures and copy and paste them, the original structures over here, they tell the same story. So this is the original fractal that does this. And if you compare it, it does similar things. Now, the timing, height, and depth, it's unique every single time. But the end of this begins the decline of part 3, which is the next fractal. As we can see with this part 3, this purple one, it does a similar thing. Again, the timing is different, the height is different, but it drops, does a bounce here, drops again, does another bounce here, drops again, and it eventually comes to a low spot where it goes into the next fractal. Now, these fractals are not matched perfectly, but functionally, they do what they should be doing. So again, this blue fractal, the very first fractal that takes place when match to this part of the chart, does what it should do. Now, we're over here. So this is where we are today. It is my belief that we are very near the peak. I don't know where this will peak out, but we are close, folks. Here's a closer look, folks. It's doing what it should be doing. It's moving up right now. I don't know how high this will go. We'll have to see, but it is my belief when this peaks out, it's going to reverse. And folks, we have some good times for the altcoins coming down the pike. That is the structure that comes next. My point is that this structure, this repetitive structure, is most likely at the point where this decline begins, this rapid decline in the Bitcoin dominance chart. When the Bitcoin dominance chart declines, and I don't know how low this will go or how long it will take to do that, the timing, height, and depth is going to play out unique. This is going to be very good for the altcoin market. Moving back over to the XRP chart. Now, whether XRP does this decline before moving up, this is this right here. So once this completes, if it's playing out again, it would begin to move up. This is what we are looking for, some version of this, some new iteration of this, whether it's playing out like this or like this. I don't know. We'll have to see. Let me clean this up. In the past, I've made statements that the bull run is about to begin, or we're weeks, not months away from the bull run beginning. Now, I am pretty bad at predicting time. Sometimes I try to do it when I look at a chart and try to calculate time from a structural point of view. And, you know, the times that I get it right, it's probably just dumb luck. I'm fully expecting to be humbled by my time prediction. However, I'm primarily coming to you from a structural point of view. There is a possibility that we are further behind from where I believe we are at, but as of now, the indicators seem to point towards being close to the end of the sideways range-bound time. I wish I knew a way to let you know that we're close without tying time into the equation. Maybe it's wishful thinking. If any of you know how to do that, let me know in the comments. You know, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But if you did enjoy this show and you would like to see more of this and you're not a subscriber, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll continue to follow up on this chart as it continues to develop. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to join my Patreon, I have a Discord where we discuss crypto, and I have videos on there regarding the bull run repetitive structure for XRP that is not on YouTube. You're welcome to join. It's a $5 a month subscription. I'll put a link to it in the description of the video. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.